Hey guys, how's it going? SleepingHollow here, and we're finally back. This is a video a month late, but I hope whether the person who left a comment here or anyone else who ever finds this video, hopefully someone will find it useful. So someone asked me how I use the curves to mesh add-on in my workflow, and this is a model I recently made. As you can see, it's not done yet. There's still little messes I need to fix, but overall, I recently made this, and I used the curves to mesh tool here for a few parts, and I'm gonna, well, yeah, for a few parts, and I'm just gonna go over how I use it. Now they asked like specifically how to use it for complex things, but I'm gonna show you overall how I made this. I didn't use it for the whole model. That's one thing I do want to know. You can use the curves to mesh to make a whole model, but for me personally, I just use it for select parts, because bevel or not bevel, sorry, curves, they're very floaty. You can make them look all pretty and nice and curvy. So that's the parts of a model I'd use it for specifically. I wouldn't make the whole model out of it. So with all that being said, let's jump into it. Let me show you how I made the parts of this model that I with curves to mesh. So hiding everything, we just have the body here, and you can see I'm sure you could guess which parts I use this. So I use it for the back down here, and also note this part down here where I inset it. I did that myself after the fact. So this whole part I use curves to mesh, and this part down here, curves to mesh. So if you're very new to curves to mesh and you want to know how I went about like deciding how it goes, the thing you have to remember with curves to mesh is that you want it to be connected by four different Bezier curves. You need four to make a nice topologized look to it. So now you can see there is a few spaces. That's because I obviously edited it after the fact to make this trigger guard. That's besides the point. So a good starting point before you actually start putting it together, unless you're doing something just freehand, but a good place to start is to figure out where you're gonna need them. So like I said, you need four. So for me, the four I use for here is here's one. This whole thing right here, not this down part, but up here there's one curve. Of course, I mirrored it to the other side as well. And then here's a third one right here, and then the fourth one was down here. And then from there, I was able to add another curve down here, same on the other side, and then one down here. So that builds it together to create the look of the front, and then back here is just one down here, one up here, one that was going through here, and then the other one down here. So it's a pretty simple process. So let's actually look at the curves themselves. So we're gonna have the model. Here are the curves. Now these on the trigger guard I just made to as kind of a way to trace. I didn't actually create the mesh from those, but as you can see here, these are all separate curves, but you can see the process of how I went about making them. Actually, if we bring up our reference images, I think this will also help. Let me just hide this one. Oh, it's weird. My other one is missing. Okay, I did have my own reference I took of my airsoft gun version of this. But I mean, this kind of still helps for the point, actually. So you can see, with using the curve, I just edited it so it follows the nice lining of where like flat end starts, begins to curve. So it's not really a complex. Let me go in edit mode, and you can see it's not really like complex. So the reason I broke it up here is because I knew I needed to make the trigger guard from this. So I just thought it'd be a lot easier if I could have one up here and then just do another one down here. And then after we have that, let me just actually hide this again. And then let's just preview it to see how it's gonna turn out. So you can see it turns out pretty well. And the reason I use it for these nice curvy areas is because they're just a pain to make. I know in a previous video I said that the mesh tools was a lot nicer to use, but preferably I would use this to start. Because you can always preview it beforehand, make sure it's something you like, but even if it's not and you create the mesh, you can always go back and redo it because you still have the curves. That's up to you. Obviously, it is more of a destructive workflow because you will have to go back if there happens to be something you don't like, you will have to go back, and if you made any crazy changes, you'll have to do them again. Like if we look at here, like down here for the actual trigger to go in, you know, you will have to do that again if you decide to remake the mesh again because you saw something you didn't like. So when you're doing the curves, be sure you like them. Check the preview, all that to make sure you're happy. So with all that said, let's go into, I'm gonna go to a new file and we're gonna do those parts all over again so I can show you how I work. Okay, so first we're gonna get rid of everything. Okay, so here we can see, here's the side image I should have had in the other project, don't know why I didn't, of my Airsoft Colt 1908. It's not the best picture, I know, the shadow is really, but this was all practice, and again, I made that model basically for this tutorial to kind of show you how I did it. So first thing I like to do actually is to make sure that my picture is perfectly aligned. So what I'll do is I'll just get anything that has a smooth top like a cube, and just make sure like this is properly aligned, just so I can get like the closest representation. Obviously, when you take a picture for a reference or you find one on the internet, perspective is a lot, so you want to make sure you have it right. But for this, it's not actually so bad because you can still see the part where you're gonna put those curves. So let's get started. So what you'd want is you'd want a collection for your curves. But if you're making separate curves, you also want to make sure you make collections for those specific curves for different parts. Because if you don't, the way curves to mesh works is you select which collection it's gonna create the mesh from. And if you have like all of them in one, it'll create meshes for all of them all together into one object. So if you want separate parts, make sure you just make separate collections for every bundle of curves you use. So now I'm just gonna create a new one actually. If you're confused of why I have all these on a new project, it's because I have an Unreal plugin, the Unreal tools for Blender. So we're gonna make a new one called curves, real simple. And so here we're gonna get started by first adding a Bezier curve, and then we're just gonna rotate it so we can look at it correctly. So it's 90, another 90, okay. And then from here we just get started. Actually, I do like to use vertex to make sure this one is properly aligned. So there's that, and then you just kind of place them down. So this one will be right here. It'll have more of like this kind of angle. Also, another thing to note is you don't just have to use 2 points. You can use as much points as you want. Obviously, that will kind of make it more, um, more topology, but it's also nice. For this one though, you only need 2 because you just have this part going up, this part going straight. So that's nice. So there, we're already kind of starting to see it. Then we can copy this. And this one we're going to want to snap, make sure they're touching. Snap to that one. And then we kind of do the same thing down here. Now this part is a little harder to see because bad lighting in this picture. That's my fault. Don't worry about it. But there. Okay, so that works. So like I said, this is all just, practice, positioning and whatnot. We're going to copy this. And now for this one, I did extrude it to add another one. I'll show you that. So just get started by putting the ones you want. You need. Actually, this one's it's kind of hard to tell because we do have this sticking out bit, but that's not part of the original one we want. So that's good. And then we extrude this one with E to create a new one. Bring it down here, like that. And then one more up here. Curves can sometimes be a little, a lot to work with, but once you get used to it, it's pretty nice. So there. Okay. Now we have what we're looking for. I'm actually gonna make sure I can't click on my reference images just so I actually misclick them. So another question I had asked is how do you mirror it? For this weapon that I made, I didn't use the mirroring. I just decided to add the actual loops altogether. But if you did, what you'd want to do is, when you have a curve, let's just quickly show you guys how you would do this. So let's do 90. Just do it right there, actually. Make sure we're nice and centered, and then make these even. So if you're looking at this, like let's say this is the front right here, this is the curve we wanted. If you want to mirror it, you would need one in the middle. So let's subdivide one right there, and then what you do is delete one side, so you just have half the loop. And then so when you mirrored it over, you'd the other one would show up right there. But make sure it's always in the center of where where the center of the axis is. Okay, so let's continue on here. We're actually going to let me click these because we're going to go ahead and add a front. Okay, so here we have the front, and I get, again, I know, really bad, really bad picture. But we're going to go ahead and see if we can actually, make this look as nice as possible. Again, not the best pictures I've taken, but we'll work with it. I think I need to make it a little bigger, actually. Kind of hard to tell where, because I know this part is supposed to be the back. So it kind of feels like this needs to be a little bigger. But, and also we want to center it. So the whole point of this one is just to see where that curve is, how much of a curve it has. That's the back, right? Yeah, so we want to make sure the back is not touching where the sight should be. For now, we'll say that's good for now. Again, this is just a quick demonstration. If you're doing this on your own, you definitely want to make sure you have great pictures. So anyways, so let's actually move these to this spot, right? And now we want to do the same thing on the other side. All I do for this is I make duplicates of each of these. Okay. And then we'll actually select one of each. Go to the item. And then for the X, we just put it into negative. Oh, I know there was a trick to doing it. I think I have to hold shift while I do it. No. Okay, well there's a trick to do them all at once, but for now we'll just... So we put them all in the X, so we have this nice, mirrored view of it. Again, this might be a bit too chunky. If you feel like it is, you can always kind of close it in. Let's say we'll just leave it here. Again, this is just a preview. But so now we want to add the curve. So what we do is, again, bring up another one. Let's spin it 90. And now for this one, you will want to make sure this is why I have the snapping vertice mode on. Is to make sure that these are perfectly lined up with this way, and also make sure that these two are equal as well, because obviously if you do it like this, if you have one, it just becomes super messy. Okay, so here we're going to want to make sure we snap to each side, and then just kind of give it that look. And once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and let's hide these so we can see what we're doing. So there, now we have that curve that's going to basically give that look, that profile. And because these two need to be connected by 4, we do need to take this one, connect it here. Then we need to rotate it. So I'm actually going to rotate it by the 3D cursor, and I'm going to set the cursor right there. Now hopefully you know how to do like those kind of things already in Blender. If not, it's kind of hard to help because I'm using mesh tools. So I kind of have different shortcuts, but yeah, it's all learning. And then we'll actually take this original one, rotate it by -90, and then we're going to attach it here. Again, you just want to make sure they're all these points are touching. So there we go. And we actually want to do the same for this. So I'm going to, once again, just use this one. Right there, and then right there. So there we go. Now we have what I started with. Again, this is a lot faster, kind of messier, but now we can go ahead and preview this. Just go to Curves to Mesh tab. First actually select the Curves collection and preview. And something is happening. Oh, okay. So you can see my mistake here is that I accidentally copied them over when they were in. Okay, there we go. And for some reason, these were not in the collection because I had new ones. That's weird. Okay, so here we can see it working. Here, not so much. And I'm not quite sure why. Let's kind of... Okay, so one of them just wasn't actually connected. Easy fix. And now we can see that we kind of have some, this is really low quality. So what we want to do is there's different ways to work about this. We can obviously add more. In this case, we're adding more down. And you can see in some parts that's adding a lot more than you need. You could use a curve resolution, but this kind of, yeah. I mean, obviously you can go into the curves and adjust them yourself, but there is different conversion ways. So if you want profile, no, let's not do that. So let's just actually set this to 20. And this is kind of why I say you need to do separately. I didn't do this for mine. I should have, but I didn't. I did make these all into one mesh. But like for instance, you'd probably take these, put them in a different collection, so you can adjust the resolution of how you want to look on that one separately, so you can get a more tuned look. But let's say that's good. Let's create the mesh. Okay, so here we have the front and back, and as you can see, one of the things that you might occur is where you see the red, that's my inside normals. So obviously we do want the gray to be sticking out, but we'll persevere. Now I'm going to do something a lot of people hate. Actually, before I do that though, I'm going to make sure that this is lined up. Nope, I want to. And then let's join these together, join these together. I'm about to do the worst thing ever and make n-gons. And again, this is just, we're just previewing this right here. So let's go ahead and flip it. There we go. Now we have the faces we need. And yeah. And to make this look a little nicer, because this weapon has flat faces, we can go ahead and turn this on. Let's do 60. And then we can take these. And all I'm really doing here is I'm using hard ops, but I'm just giving these a hardened edge. Alright, so there we go. So you basically have what I started with when I first started doing that model. Again, this one might be a little too chunky. But again, this is just testing purposes, just showing you how I use this workflow. How I use custom mesh. So it's not, I don't use it for the most complex things, but you can. As long as you keep to the rules that you have 4 connected in any way, make sure they are connected by the origin point of each, not the origin point, but the actual vertice point in the middle of each Bezier curve. And really the rest of it is just your imagination. So again, I hope you found this useful. Let me actually, before we go away, let me actually just bring back the actual model again real quick. So as you can see here, I did, prior to making this video, I did have all those squares down here. That was really dense, and I did cut them back a bit, like every other one, I think. And then right here you can see after I created this guard handle, right, or this trigger handle right here, guard. I had like 4 loops, I think, going through here because I did have all of those. I just, got rid of them because, again, for these kind of parts, it's just eyeing it to see it, because right here, you don't need all those, And yeah, from there you just make what you want and you put it all together again. N-gons, all the N-gons. But yeah, you could use this to make a whole mesh. I personally would rather just use it for the parts I know I need the curve support for. If it's flat, it seems like a little waste of time to use a curve. But anyways, I hope you found this video very useful. And I'm sorry to the person who left a comment. I'm sorry it was a month late. I've been busy with stuff. But anyways, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.